It's the BBPTVShow since 2012, where amazing guests share their digital adventures. Who will we meet today? Small biz influencer, up-and-coming trendsetter, accomplished author? You never know who'll be dropping by. And now, here's your host, Elaine Lindsay, the bionic glamourpreneur with Truel Social Media, who's the second most curious person on the planet.
And I'm super excited to bring a wonderful guest to you today. And I'm just going to start by saying, Blaise Hunter, I Am Heroine. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. And before we go into anything else, this is what's been exciting me since I met Blaise. Her husband bought her a real sword. A real sword. We're going to talk about that and so much more in just a few minutes. But first, I want to give you a little sample of what there is to Blaise. Blaise is a Canadian author. There's just so much information. You're an award-winning advocate. You're an international speaker. I know you spent time in the UK. You're a fertility expert who tackles the realities of issues women face from body image, self-esteem, motherhood, and infertility. You push back on the pressures of perfectionism that women face in today's world. Really good to hear about that. And your mission is to inspire women to love themselves and breathe their passion like fire by blazing their own trail. I absolutely love that tagline. You found your way out of darkness and transformed your pain into your purpose. Blaise's quest is to help women unleash the power of vulnerability to become their own hero and birth their destiny. Also, she has the Blaze the Trail podcast, and that's featured on the Business Innovative radio network, where listeners can find her current and upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure that you have links to that and all of her social as per usual on the BBP TV show page. Hello, after all that, hello. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor.
Oh, no, I'm definitely honored to have you. I've been devouring everything I can get my hands on, and some of your YouTube videos and your podcasts, and it's all the pieces that I'd wish that I'd had back when I was a teenager.
Yes.
And, I like yourself, I can say that, I've gone through miscarriages, not the infertility thing, but understand there are so many women in our situation that have gone through that. I think it's more than time for someone to basically take up the sword and take up that challenge to help women and to, I think you said, breathe fire.
Yes.
I absolutely love that. So first things first, give me a window into how Blaise Hunter became the heroine.
Mm-hmm. I think, like many women and young girls, we struggle with self-worth, with body image, with knowing who we are, and different stages of our lives. We get challenged with that. Knowing your identity, and then stepping into motherhood, and you lose your identity again in motherhood. And over the course of my life, I really developed a very poor self-esteem, self-hatred. And I didn't really realize that. I just knew I didn't like myself, but I didn't know how to really identify that was the problem. I just was ashamed. I hid my body. I never felt good enough. I never felt like I had a voice. I didn't know how to use my voice. I didn't know how to tap into my own uniqueness. And I actually developed a very rare autoimmune disease in my 20s. And I went to a holistic therapist because I went through the Western medicine and nothing was working. And she sat me down and she said, "Oh, well, you have an autoimmune disease where your body attacks itself." And I said, "Yes." And she's like, Do you think there's a link with that and the fact that you hate yourself so much and that you attack yourself with your thoughts every day? And I never had someone put that as a link into that kind of perspective. And I wept. I just said, yeah, maybe. Like, maybe there's a correlation that I attack myself and now my body's responding to my own thought. And so that was the catalyst that led me on a journey of self-love 6 years ago. And it's been life-changing. And just taking a step towards self-love, stripping away the layers, and starving my disease by injecting love instead of hatred. And so it's been in such an incredible journey. And then the part two of that is that I do have a daughter. I've had secondary infertility. So I was looking at her during this self-reflection, self-love journey, and she was 3 years old at the time. And I'm like, how am I going to get her to love herself? Because I've struggled and I'm trying to undo all of that. But she's 3 years old here. And I looked at her and being like, how do I get her to be in school at like 12 years old and not think she's fat and ugly and not good enough, and depending on a guy to dictate her worth or the scale to dictate her worth? Yeah. And it just, another light bulb blew up in me that mama has to practice what she preaches. I'm her role model. So my voice will become her inner voice. So that was what led this whole heroine movement, is to be the change for me, to starve my disease and be the best me that I can and rise up and be the hero of my life, and then be a superhero for my child.
Absolutely. You said such a mouthful, and it amazes me that in my eyes, you came to that so quickly. Some of us take longer to learn lessons. Some of us learn them a little quicker. Your daughter's 3. You have you just have the one child. She's now older than that. So
yeah, she's 7 now.
7. Okay. Yeah. That's a lovely age. We have a grandson who's 7. So they're a lot of fun at that age.
They're amazing.
Absolutely. So what was, after that big aha, if you will, what was the first thing you did? Where was the first place you reached out to once you realized that you had to do something very different?
I think it was a stirring of your heart. I think that when you succumb to poor self-esteem and shame, you shrink yourself. You shrink lower and lower, and you become mediocre, and you blend in, and you don't want to push outside because you don't want to fail, and you don't want to put yourself out there to be rejected. And I think the first thing I did was take a step towards my purpose and towards showing the world who I am, not what everyone was supposed to see me as. I thought, if I can just adapt and be what you want me to be, I'll be loved. And that didn't work. So my first step, and the first thing I really did, was I was vulnerable. I decided to show people, my family, people in my circle that never saw the real girl flawed. I just started to show flaws and be vulnerable and unmask myself. And slowly over time, I did it in different pockets of my life.
It takes incredible courage to do that.
It does, because you get so good at perfecting your mask that you don't actually work on your soul. So I perfected everything on the outside, what everyone thought that I should be, or what I thought people wanted from me. But I actually never worked on personal growth because it was just the outward layer, right?
Absolutely. I don't know about you, but years ago, I was given this test, and they asked a bunch of us, we were in a workshop, to write 100 things about ourselves. And there were only 4 of us who had nothing positive on the sheet. I bet you totally understand that.
Yes. It's amazing. I travel into schools and talk to 15-year-old girls about self-confidence and relating it to emotional cutting. Because when we think of cutting ourselves, we think, oh, that's bad. But when we think toxic thoughts and negative things about ourselves, that's actually emotional cutting. And I try and relate it to that, like you're really cutting your heart and you're bleeding and you're cutting your inner child. And if we can have that visual, maybe we can stop those negative thoughts from penetrating our hearts and just being okay with who we are. And yeah, it's just incredible to try and help these young girls get it sooner than me or the rest of us, right? Like not in your 30s, 40s, 60s. Like, can we get them at 10 and know their worth? That's my legacy, is to change that.
It's an incredible legacy. Absolutely. So how soon after that first aha did you get into writing the book?
So I have an interesting story with that.
Good.
So it was a process, like anything that you're going through. I never want to be telling people that like it's like one post went viral and boom, you're a superstar and you own it and you never have a problem again. This is a journey. It doesn't just look like straight up. It is like this.
Yeah.
And so I had those couple of aha moments to start taking steps towards my purpose and who I was and own who I was. But it was a big catalyst moment when I had my first miscarriage. And it sent me into a very big depression, of grief. I was shattered. I didn't know how to reconcile what I was feeling in my heart. And how could this be when I feel like I'm taking a step towards my purpose and I got threw down, smacked down and said, like, what are you going to do now? Right. And I'm also dealing with a very rare, deadly disease. And I just felt like this was it. That miscarriage was like the nail in the coffin, that I felt like I had no more purpose or hope. And I was crying out to God and being like, I don't know if I'm going to live. I feel like I'm dying. And I was on Facebook and I saw this advertisement for a women healing minister coming to a city near where I was living. And I didn't have a clue who she was, but I recognized her last name. And so I Googled her. And yeah, I actually did have a connection to the name. Her parents were healing ministers 30 years ago, and they had visited a church I was going to in Canada 30 years prior, and they had a deep, lasting impact on me. So they have passed on, but this daughter has taken over their ministry. They're from Texas. She was coming to Canada, to the city within 3 hours drive for me. So I just felt really compelled that I needed to go see her. I had never met her, but I felt like, you know what, I need to go see her. And I made my mom drive me. I was too ill to drive the 3 hours. I said, will you come pick me up and take me to this lady? I must see her. And my mom agreed. And as we're driving to this service, I said a prayer. I said, God, I need a sign tonight that I'm going to live and not die. And I said, I don't care what that sign is, but I need it tonight. So that's it. Amen. And I got to the service and I sat right in the front row. And my mom was like, oh, I don't do front rows. And I'm like, I come all the way here for the back. So my mom sat down beside me, and the service began. This lady started speaking, and I got loud in my head again about this prayer, being like, God, I'm here. I need my sign. I won't leave here. I literally will stay in this chair all night, but I'm not leaving here without my sign. And she's speaking, and she's on the other end of the room. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she goes, I just need to stop the entire service. Someone is drawing on me so much, I can't continue on. Wow. And she walked right over to me, looks me in the eye, and says, God hears your cry. He sees your pain. Your tears will end, joy will come, and you will write a book about it. And that was it. Yeah.
That's pretty specific.
Yeah. I was like, I think that was my sign. Pretty sure that was my sign.
I think that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty on the nose.
yeah, the book was never on the radar until that very moment where I left there injected with hope and a purpose and a pathway to go towards, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So now we're going to jump ahead. You have your daughter, you're writing your book, you're getting ready to take your message out there.
Mm-hmm.
What who are the tribe that you rely on to help you keep going?
The number one thing is that I'm very blessed that I have a husband who fans my flames. And it's so unfortunate sometimes in this world where spouses and partners aren't really partners and we compete against one another. And men are looking for their worth and women are looking for power and their place in this world. And unfortunately, a lot of times we clash and try and take power away from one another. And I had a lot of relationships like that. I've worked a lot on finding my place and uplifting my husband. And then he has in turn uplifted me. And it's been an incredible journey with him. So he is actually somebody that fuels me, that pushes me, that gives me space to be me. And he loves me for me. And that's the first person in this entire world that has said, I love you because of your flaws. And I see that you have a destiny and I'm going to push you forward. So my husband is absolutely my greatest champion and cheerleader. And then I have a few definite key, strong women in my life that I've surrounded and picked strategically to love me, to support me, to challenge me, and to lift me up. And they're so vital for me as a person, as a mother, as a woman.
It's such an important point, and I'm so glad that you filled that out as you did, because none of us can do it alone.
No.
And very often people with low self-esteem that are complying, if you will, with everyone and everything out there just don't understand that going it alone is not the answer.
No, it takes a village, not just to
Yes,
raise a child, it takes a village to live, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's great you brought up your husband. Your husband, I mean, it sounds everything you say, there's a wonderful joy in how you speak about him, which I think is incredible. And that can't be present unless it's a two-way street, which is wonderful. So let's talk about the sword. How, the why, the when he got you the sword.
The sword became instrumental right when I published my book. I
Mhm.
thought, I was me up until 33. And then all of a sudden, Blaise Hunter is now going to rise through the ashes and become her own alter ego and come back stronger, fiercer, knowing who she is, breathing fire, blazing the trail for herself and for her young, and leading the way for womankind to be the champions of their life. And so I felt like I was my own superhero. Why are we looking to fictional characters with boobs hanging out and skinny waists? And it's not like real. Why can't we look to real heroic women in our lives that are doing it every day, rising up, showing up, and doing their best? Like, let's celebrate real heroism. And so I wanted to be the hero. I got my cape, I got a plastic sword, and I speak on stages with my cape and my sword, and I roar, and I empower myself, and I starve my disease every time I do that. So that was the gimmick that I used right from the beginning. It was me. It's authentic. It's totally what I'm all about. It's worked. People respond to it. But I've always wanted my own real sword, right? Like, so I've just had that as a wish list. And it was my birthday last month. And my husband surprised me with like an actual amazing real vintage sword. And it just was like the greatest gift and so sweet and just represents our relationship that he gets me and he knows me.
That's exactly what I took from that little piece when you and I first spoke. And there was such joy in you talking about the sword. It could only come from someone who loved you completely. I
Yes.
firmly believe that. Yeah. Yeah. So give people an idea of some of the talks that you do. And you're not just empowering 15-year-olds, you're working with all different generations.
Yeah, I always say like whether you're 7 years old, 15, in your 20s, 30s, if you're in your 50s, and if you're in your 60s and 70s, some women tell me like, oh, I'm over all of that self-image stuff, and I'm passing all this to my grandkids. And I said, no, you're never too old to live out your purpose. We can't retire from vulnerability, and you have a very key role to show and model the younger generations. And the younger generations, if we can get them to knowing their worth and their purpose earlier and earlier, we can raise them to be earth changers and world shakers and just create massive movements of women side by side leading this world and changing things for the good. And that's amazing. So that's part of my whole talks, is I have different things that I speak about depending on my audience, whether it's young girls in schools. I talk about knowing your worth, exploring relationships with yourself, with food, and with others. Because if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, it is actually creating a toxic environment for every other relationship that you ever have. And it poisons it in some way or another until you get rid of that poor self-esteem and inject love, and then love filters into the rest of your relationships. And then I can help women and mothers, because I talk about motherhood is so difficult. And no one told me, not even my own mother, told me of like the days that you'll spend crying in the covers thinking you can't do it and think you're a bad mom. And we're not bad. Like, we're just real, and we need to talk about it and help each other. And it takes the village. And I talk about infertility, and I've created a nonprofit organization called Footprints, where we're changing healthcare systems and injecting empathy. And it's not just a medical issue, it's a mental health one, and we need to help parents grieve and heal. And so I have all these different topics of conversation, but it's all stemming to know your worth, to identify your purpose, to take a step towards it, draw your sword, and breathe fire. And we all have setbacks. We all have challenges. You might not be dealing with infertility as a baby, but if you're not producing your destiny, then you're not living to your fullest potential. So challenge yourself. You are not barren. You have fruit to produce. And I'm going to challenge everybody based off a quote of Fred DeVito, which means what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. And if we're not changing, evolving, and growing, we are stagnant, and that's not fully living. So my whole talk, my whole mission, everything that I do, it's not popular. It is challenging. And I'm an agitator for change. And what we're doing right now isn't working for women to know their worth and step into their purpose. So I'm an agitator for change, and I'm challenging myself. I don't just tell people, I walk the walk. I challenge myself. I'm vulnerable about the challenges I'm going through and my faults and flaws, and I'm along this journey with you, because we can change and we can be the change.
Absolutely. And it starts with each of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I love what you're taking out there. And it's I think it's so timely as well. Brene Brown and her whole thing to do with shame and vulnerability. I love that you're taking it even further in terms of, starting with kids, because I'm an older generation than you. we tried our best, as our parents did and as their parents did. But when we know better, we do better. You can tell your children how wonderful they are until you're blue in the face. If you don't have self-esteem, how do you think you can pass it on?
It's absolutely true. Like, you can do as many workshops and put your kids into mindfulness, and you show them different things, but nothing works as well as you doing it yourself and being the model. Like, my daughter's 7, and I've never seen such an immediate transformation of a shy toddler to when I just started breathing fire. Now she's spit and vinegar, knows what she wants, and I didn't put her into any classes. She's just modeling that from her mom and seeing a woman stand tall and own it and wear a bikini at the beach and play and laugh and love her partner and communicate with one another, even my daughter. And it's fostering such a beautiful pathway for her to know her worth, just because I am putting the work in for me. I'm not just telling her, hey, you go have self-confidence, you wear the bikini, but I'm not, I've got stretch marks or this, right? Like, you've got to own it.
Yeah. Thank you. You hit exactly on where I was trying to go with that. It's not that one removed. We have to own it in order for them to own it. And I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that you not only got it, but you got it at the right time to be able to imbue your daughter with this confidence and this, breathing fire so that she can go forward. And what I think is wonderful about that is when you are love, when you are in joy, everybody around you gets to feel that. And you do kind of rub off.
You do. And you inspire other people to want that, to hunger after that, be a conduit for dreams. And so, I always say, haven't you ever noticed the whole world is on a diet? Like, literally, we are on a world diet. And I feel like that is a direct correlation with a lack of appetite for our life. We diet in our destiny. We diet in experiences, zeal, appetite for life. So take yourself off the point plan, indulge, get the passion and the hunger again, be hungry and say, I have a destiny and I'm going to hang on to that because my child is worth that. Yes. So I have a responsibility to myself and to my young to show them that I know how to live and not diet.
Absolutely. And well, that word starts with die. So already it's certainly not appealing.
No, and you bring up a good point there. So another big quote that I always direct my talks and all my teachings through is Benjamin Franklin once said, most people die at 25 and don't get buried until 75.
Yes.
And he's talking about spiritual, emotional soul death, that we lose our destiny, we lose our hunger, and we just ride out going through the motions for the rest of our life. Like, it's okay. Things aren't bad, but they're not great, but I'll just carry on because it's comfortable. Yes, destiny, purpose, and challenging yourself is uncomfortable, but your destiny does not lie within your comfort zone. It lies in with pushing the boundaries and experiencing something you never even knew you could, right?
Yeah. Nothing good, nothing exciting, nothing fun lies within that comfort zone.
Exactly. Like, you need to feel it. Feel the good, feel the bad. It's worth it.
Absolutely. Humans by very nature are comparative. So you can't know how good the good is unless you have some bad.
Exactly.
And then you can, weigh it against the other.
Yeah.
So let's show people the cover of your book.
Mm-hmm.
which would be
Yes.
quite lovely if you can, yeah, hold that up. I think it's such a phenomenal cover. That's you putting yourself out there. It's a phenomenally beautiful cover, and you are not just walking your walk, you're talking your talk. I find it all incredibly real, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because in that, even in the first time we spoke, I got a real sense of who you were, and you really were the person that I was seeing all the information about, which thrills me absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, it was such an amazing process because it, like, I had that encounter with that minister. So I
Yeah,
started writing this, but it was never supposed to be a business. It was, I didn't even know if it would be published. It was really for me to heal, right? Like
right,
to heal. I was
right.
having 2 more miscarriages after that encounter. So it was 3
Yeah,
miscarriages, grief, and just healing and outpouring. And I wanted to add a very visual aspect to it because I knew I had body image issues, and I've never actually had weight issues. I had what the perception was when I looked at in the
right.
mirror. I felt like I was ugly, and some people will look at me and be like, what do you have to be like, what do you have to worry about? You're a size whatever. You have no stretch marks or
Yeah,
fat. And I said, but the image I was looking at wasn't beautiful. So it doesn't matter what size you are. If you're not seeing what you are for real, like beautiful, then you're seeing a tainted image of yourself, right?
yeah,
So I wanted to give women an opportunity to show what their real self looked like. Whether you're a size 0 or a 22, you're beautiful. And I put a call out for women to be in the book. And I was astounded that I partnered with a local photographer, and we thought maybe we'd get 5 women. We got 30 women within 12 hours, signed up
wow.
for a week to pose for a stranger in their underwear and be in this book. So all 30 women are featured in the book Heroine. One of the ladies, the cover of the book, that's not me, but it's one of the ladies inside
Oh,
the book.
okay.
And but I'm there as well. And so yeah, me and the photographer did it as well, because I felt like if I'm asking women to do this, I can't get them to do it unless I do it, right? So it was,
Absolutely.
I'll never be able fully to explain of the powerful moments that happened in that photography studio over a
Mhm.
weekend, where women came undressed in their underwear very tastefully. Like, this isn't anything like that. It's just about showing who you are and
Yeah,
unmasking yourself. The moment they did that, tears streamed down their face. And it was such a connected, healing moment, because we realized in that moment, someone puts a camera lens up and you're like, oh my God, the jig is up. They're going to see it all. And it's out for the world to see. And everything that I've hid under my Spanx and my ruching and my double layers and all these things that you hide, it's right there. And whether you've got rolls and stretch marks or you've got like the perfect body, no woman thinks they do have the perfect body. So each woman had a flaw they were trying to overcome in that moment, and it was beautiful.
wow. That in itself is such an incredible gift you were able to share with those women.
Mm-hmm. It's life altering. Of Yeah, some people say they would never do this. Some other people are like, oh yeah, no problem. But speaking from experience, this was my project. I had the idea. And then when it was my turn to stand in front of the camera, I had a physical reaction of
Yeah,
fear. Like, this was like, oh man, things just got real. And I don't know if I'm prepared for this. Right? And so, like, it is way harder to actually follow through and do it. So I give these women such credit for the bravery to do it, and to do it for their daughters and do it for their sons, and say,
yes,
mom is good enough.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And as a friend of mine always says, they each called on courage.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a it's such an empowering thing when you are with a like-minded tribe that can help uplift you. It does make
Yes.
all the world of difference.
Well, and the world is so critical. So let us be the change instead of going the easy route of being critical of ourselves and for others. Because if we're critical of others, it's just a signal that we're really being critical of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's always my check system, is when I feel competitive with somebody, or if I want to critique or judge, I have this moment where I'm like, no, that's not really about them. That's about me right now, not feeling good. And why don't I feel good enough? And I am. So let's take a step towards love and support rather than tearing down.
I love that. That's that's a good exercise people should do at all times.
Yeah, exactly.
So, wow, I can't believe the time has gone so fast.
I know.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. I could probably talk to you for ages.
I
We
could
would
talk
like,
to you. This is such a great.
well, I love the fact that we get to highlight your whole concept. To me, I think is so important. And now, with everything that's going on in our world, to be able to empower women and in some cases men as well, because there's lots of men out there who are in exactly the same boat. They just don't get to show it sometimes.
Absolutely. You talks for men as well. Like, they have self-esteem issues. It just looks different than us, right? And
Absolutely.
so it goes down to knowing your identity, knowing it's okay to be different and unique, and lean into that. And we're fathers of destiny and mothers of purpose. And if we could just step into that, even if we're going through a barren season, it doesn't mean we are barren. It just means we're going through a season, and we can still be fertile. I haven't had my next baby yet, but I have birthed destiny. I have birthed my book. I've birthed a business. I've birthed inspiration and a movement of women empowerment. So I'm not infertile. I'm not barren. I'm just birthing other things while that dream is still in progress, right?
It's such a beautiful way to put it, and I think could be so helpful for so many people. As I wrap up the show, I always ask my guests to leave the audience with some little either business or personal little trick, hack, tweak that you use on a daily basis, that, you know, something little that they can do to help empower themselves.
So I actually just did a live video yesterday about sanitizing our thoughts and putting a mask over our, because I feel like we're in the middle of a pandemic, and how many times are we talking about or doing like sanitization, washing our hands? I have my mask here. Like, how many times are we doing this, or thinking about it, or buying it, or collecting? And I'm like, every day we need to do a filter system of our thoughts and sanitize our thoughts, right? Like, this is my job, and I'm going to be honest, I still have toxic thoughts that come in.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't mean we're ever going to master and do away with ever feeling or thinking a bad thought. You're not a bad person if you have a toxic thought. It's what you do with it. Do you let it take root, or do you just let the thought filter through and go on by, right? So no matter what it is it about your body? Is it about, you know, being a mother? Is it about you don't really know what you're doing with your life and you have no purpose? Are you going through infertility? Is your business struggling? Whenever those thoughts come up that you can't do it and you should give up, or, you know, you're not as good as the next person, like, put on the mask, the mental mask today. Filter it out and say, no, I am worthy. I have purpose. I have a destiny. I'm going to keep pushing on and moving forward, drawing my sword and breathing fire.
I love that. I love that. What an incredible way to end the show today. Thank you so much, Blaise. It has been absolutely lovely having you on the show. I'm Elaine Lindsay of True Social Media, your host for BBPTVShow, and this has been my incredible guest, Blaise Hunter. She is not just a heroine, but with her own sword, she breathes fire. Make sure that you go to the site and check out all her links. You'll notice that you can see the link for picking up her books is actually on the screen. Everything else, social, etc., and her website will be on the website BBPTVShow on her page. With that said, thank you again. Make the best of your today, every day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.